Sounds good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Make Appreciation Matter, Recognize and Retain Youth Workers. So, good afternoon. We are excited to have you here. My name is Cassie Wade. I am the Vice President of Youth Worker Wellbeing here with Indiana Youth Institute. Thank you for joining us on your lunch break. We really are grateful for the opportunity and the chance to connect with you as a community of Indiana youth workers committed to meeting the needs of our youth. For those of you that aren't familiar with IYI, our mission is to improve the lives of all Indiana children by strengthening and connecting the people, the organizations, and the communities that are focused on kids and youth. And so thank you so much for joining us. And if you haven't heard about the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project, we are a collaborative statewide effort to improve your lives. We know that you do so much to take care of Indiana's youth. We want to take care of you. So that is why the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project is here. We are grateful for our partners. This project is built on the foundation of partnership. And so we are grateful for our partners at Indiana After School Network, IARCA Institute for Excellence, Indiana Youth Services Association, and Marion County Commission on Youth. We really couldn't do it without their partnership. If you've been on these webinars before, you've heard this plenty of times, but just a few pointers to help you engage in today's webinar. So for any technical support issues, use the chat feature. So Joshua Long is here from Professional Education to be able to support you. Use also this feature to engage with the presenter and the group as well. So use the chat feature. We love the chat feature. We also encourage you to use the Q&A feature, and we'll get to as many questions at the end as possible. And then if there's a great question, you see a great question, upvote it as well. Let us know these things. And then at the end of today's presentation, in a follow-up email, you will receive a link to complete an evaluation. IYI is a data-driven organization. Feedback is a gift. We want your feedback. And so please let us know your thoughts about today's presentation. And if you don't receive an email, check your junk, check that other folder. You likely received it. It's just somewhere lost in the email world. And once you complete the evaluation, you will be redirected to a certificate for participation. And also, like all of our other webinars, today's webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on our website. So you can always come back to it and review the information later, or share it with a colleague, share it with your leadership team, share it with a friend. So we are excited to kick off in the spring again our benefits webinar series with Purple Ink. The series was designed and is designed for youth-serving organizational leaders, human resources professionals to learn about what are the latest trends in employee benefits. We want you to gain tools, to gain resources, to gain information so that you can boost employee retention, boost employee satisfaction, and then the overall well-being of your employees. And so joining us today is Michelle Callan, Director of Learning and Development with Purple Ink. And she has more than 3 decades of human resources experience in nonprofit management, healthcare, commercial real estate, financial services. And she works with organizations to enhance their culture and create more inclusive workplaces where team members feel they belong and reach their full potential. So, with that, I'll turn it over to Michelle. Thank you for joining us. Oh, Michelle, you're muted.
Sorry, I tried to mute myself thinking I might be the reason for the echo. So then I forgot to hit. You'd think by now we'd have this down to a science. So thank you. Excited to be with all of you today. I guess now I'm going to have to update my bio because I'm now on 4 decades. And so, yikes. As I see that, I thought, oh, that's a change I have to make if I want to admit that I've been doing this for 4 decades, showing my age a little bit. So thank you again for having me today. Really want to talk with you all today about recognizing and retaining youth workers and how appreciation matters for folks. And so today we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to examine the impact that recognition has on employee morale. Many of you know this, that need to feel valued is so critical to all of us as human beings. We're going to explore ways that you can recognize employees both formally as well as informally. And we know what the research tells us is the informal recognition is oftentimes what people value even more than maybe your formal programs that you have. And then we'll identify some strategies to create that culture of appreciation for everybody. Because I think oftentimes my experience has always been it often falls to the leader to make sure that everyone feels recognized and appreciated. And how do we make sure that we create an entire culture of folks who feel that they have as much responsibility as you might as the leader? So, those are some things we're going to be talking about today. And really want you to use the chat feature. In fact, next up, I'm going to ask you to do just that. And I'd like you to stop for a moment and think about a time that you genuinely felt appreciated, you genuinely felt recognized at work. And I'd like you to share in the chat, how did that happen? What was it that happened that made you feel recognized and appreciated? So, what was done? And why did it feel meaningful to you? So if you'll share in the chat, and we'll be watching the chat for some answers. And as you all think about that and respond, this is always my example that sticks with me. Now, I have to tell you, this recognition was given to me when I worked at Wishart Health Services, now known as Eskenazi. And so that has been over 3 decades ago. And yet I still remember it because that's how meaningful it was. I had my boss, I was working a lot of hours. I had littles at home. And I was putting that extra hours on a project. And a thank you note went to my house, not to me, but to my children, thanking my children for giving some of their mom's time so that I could get a project done. I still remember that. And actually, in my what I call my sunshine file, I still have that note from all those years ago. So let me see what's happening for you all. Coworker stopped me in the hallway to thank me for supporting her. Love that. Again, that's that informal. In an email exchange, a staff member said they appreciated you. Love that. The executive director passed me in the hallway and said, "Great job today," in the meeting. So love that. New to the organization, feeling that already, that affirmation, so important. Received a small gift with a thank you note from a coworker. Supervisor praised my work in the meeting. Do you see how a number of these are coming through that are things you remember, things you acknowledge? Were not big trophies, right? They weren't trips or any of those things that people always are saying, well, I can't afford recognition. Having admins know you by your name, can't stress enough how that important that is in organizations. And having leaders who walk, right? Walk and talk to folks. So thank you all for sharing some of those examples. I appreciate those. And it just reinforces for us this idea that recognition doesn't need a big budget. You don't need a lot of money and a lot of resources, but it does need some intentionality, and some consistency for organizations and for individuals in your organization. And so we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like for folks. So, as I said, it really doesn't need a big budget. It does need that intention and consistency to make sure that folks feel recognized and appreciated. It's not a one time at your annual review where you get the recognition that you should receive throughout the course of the year. So why does it matter? So I'll ask you first, and again, you can chime in the chat, come off mute, whatever works for you. Why does recognition matter to you and to your employees? What are some thoughts? It's taking everybody a moment to be like, let me put down my lunch and type something in the chat. So feel free to use the chat feature. Why does recognition matter, especially in the work you're doing? Love that. Makes you feel like you matter. It's a boost of energy. I love that phrase. Like it's your energy drink for the day, right? Love that. Yeah, if you want to retain amazing crew, you got to recognize folks. Yeah, absolutely. Y'all nailed it. So here's some reasons why it's really important, especially in the work that you all do. We all know there's a lot of emotional labor that goes into human services work and working with youth. There's an emotional labor that we expend for that. We know that the burnout rates can be really high in the not-for-profit sector and in the human services sector. So burnout rates can be really high. And so recognition does not solve everything for burnout, right? But it does help back to that. It's an energy boost. It helps to know that what I'm doing matters. It's about purpose and impact, right? It's about really people being able to be recognized for the impact that they are making in the organization and knowing that other people see that impact as well. And you're right. Someone said, if I'm going to retain my crew, the best and the brightest, I really need to think about recognition because it helps to retain folks. It helps to keep people engaged in your organization. So again, we know this, but I always think it's a good reminder of why this matters to folks. And so when you think about this idea of appreciation and how we appreciate folks, too often we do get in the habit of thinking about it in terms of annual review awards, or we think about it, those milestone awards. Those things, how many of us have some kind of pin or some klatchki, as my grandma would call it, from, oh, I've been here 5 years. Here you go. Here's your paperweight. Oh, you've been here 10 years. Here, right? We very often get in this idea that it has to be something formal. But as you all demonstrated in the very beginning, informal can be just as impactful as the more formal. So let's dive into that a little bit more. As we see, we know this. I love that, Amy. Thank you for sharing that. Milestone awards feel so like it's like an obligation that it's not really genuine, right? Sometimes you feel that. Look, I worked for an organization once. You know how I found out it was my anniversary? I literally had somebody walk over and hand me a catalog. Here is your catalog. Anybody else been in the work long enough to remember the days when we got a catalog and we had to go in and uh, pick out what we wanted and then it got shipped to our house? Talk about not feeling very authentic. That definitely felt like an obligation. So appreciate you sharing that, Amy. We know that employees will be more engaged when they feel recognized. You all shared that. More likely to stay with your organization when they know that their work matters and that other people see that their work matters, it also helps to make us a lot more resilient, especially during stressful periods. And we all know that right now, human services, especially, there are a lot of stressors happening. And so helping people to be even more resilient. Y'all hear, and we all hear the hard stories in human services every day. We hear those hard stories. We carry those stories with us. So doing what we can to help people is always important as we think about that for recognition as well and appreciation. So it is more than saying thank you, although as I say that, I will say thank you is huge with folks. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like for you and for your organizations. So again, we think about things like Employee of the Month. We think about gift cards, the annual awards dinner, the annual certificate that you get. But we need to think about things like the verbal appreciation that someone gets, the peer recognition, growth opportunities. That's a way to recognize our staff. Having flexible benefits. And I know we've talked a lot about benefits, and I'm really excited for one of our upcoming, I'll go ahead and plug it now, one of our upcoming sessions where we're going to talk about the various life stages of employees and different ways to recognize and have some things that are kind of customized to that life stage of your employees. So flexible benefits are a great way to recognize folks, as well as celebrating their contributions to the organization. I think we still have a little bit of an echo. I'm not sure what might be causing that. I apologize for that because I'm not sure how to solve for that. So I think Josh is trying his best to make that work for us. So again, it's important to think personal, be specific, be timely, and be authentic. No catalog on the desk, no 5-year award. Some people love those, but also how can you be really personal, specific, timely, and authentic with your recognition? Kelly said, I had a supervisor once who asked what my love languages were so they could be sure they weren't communicating their appreciation to me in ways that were meaningful. Yeah, that would resonate with them, but not with you. So love that. What are those languages? Love Kelly saying that. That's one of the things when you think about how do you make it personal, what's important to the individual. When I go back to thinking about the letter, the thank you note that my children got from my boss Cheryl at the time, she knew that that was something that I was sacrificing, and it was really important to me to spend time with my kids, as it is for us, and that it was a sacrifice to be away from my kids more than normal. And she recognized that and acknowledged that. So that got very personal for me. Yeah, I love it. Rhonda said we have new hires take an appreciation language quiz so we know how they want to be appreciated. Yeah, we'll talk about that. I think big snaps for that one because you know what? Knowing your people means you know how they like to be recognized. Some folks would love to have a parade, and other people are like, nope, private is good. So we'll talk about that too. So love the fact that you do an appreciation language quiz. Another way to even recognize folks before they hit the door, when I was with a large not-for-profit, one of the things we did is after they were hired, so we didn't violate any HR laws. So anybody in HR, don't get nervous right now. But after they were hired, but before their first day, we would send them an all about you form. And we asked everything. We asked, do you have any pets? All kinds of things. And we asked them too, what's your favorite salty snack? What is your favorite sweet snack? What is your favorite drink, etc. And when people arrived on their first day, two things happened. One, in orientation, we had the snacks that group said they liked. Again, it was just a quick trip to Costco. We had the snacks that they liked, and we had the drinks out. So, it's a little something for all of them. And then on each person's desk was a little goodie bag and it had one of their favorite drinks. So, had a Diet Coke in it and some pretzels and a Milky Way or whatever that was, right, that they picked out, with a little note from their other team members that said, welcome, welcome to the team. And so you can even start recognition before they hit the door. So, kind of like that appreciation language, you can also figure out how to start demonstrating that appreciation. And you can do that anytime, right? And people change, right? So maybe my salty snack a year ago or two is not my salty snack now. So because, we get all kinds of new snacks in. So it's also an opportunity once a year for you to say to people again, how do you want to continue to be recognized and appreciated? Yeah, I love that. Emily said we give new staff members their favorite snack and a note on their first day. Love it. That's exactly what we're talking about here. So again, doesn't take a lot of money, but it sure says something to me that on my very first day, I have my favorite things, some of my comfort, right? Because we're still just trying to figure out where the bathroom is. We want to know what the dress code is and where the bathroom. So anything to help give us that sense of comfort and belonging, spot on. Yeah, Dawn said I just changed jobs and my new agency did that for me, gave you a goodie basket. And it was amazing, right? And you feel recognized and appreciated already. So love that. Five free, five under five, five things you like to do that are free and five things they like that are inexpensive. So again, as you're planning outings, you can use that information. Know yourself, know your employees, I think is our big takeaway here as we know people, we're able to recognize them. So when we think about this recognition gap, what often happens is it's too infrequent. It becomes that once a year thing. It's not intentionable. It's not intentional with folks. So it's kind of like a fly by the seat of the pants, spur of the moment. Oh, yeah, I should do that. And too often it's not equitable. And we have to really think about this when we have people who are in the field versus people that we're looking at every single day. We want to make sure that we are being equitable in how we're doing that because it's really easy to see somebody and say something like, hey, great job in that meeting earlier today. But if the person is not in our line of sight, sometimes we only focus on those folks that we can see. So getting much more aware and intentional about making sure that those that are not always in our line of sight are also getting recognition and appreciation. The other thing that often causes the gap is limited budget, high workloads, right? Everybody's busy. You have the best intentions, but so much is happening that it gets often lost. And so how do we make sure that it's more intentional so it doesn't get lost in translation and in time? And then we talked about having these teams or shifts. I said I worked in healthcare. I've spent 17 years in healthcare, trying to make sure that the night shift felt as appreciated as the day shift or the weekend shift. Huge piece of that. So make sure that if you have people working shifts, think about that. Do they feel as appreciated during other times as those folks that maybe are there when you might be there? And so very often too, we'll focus on those folks that are long tenured or are more senior staff, making sure that we're including our newer folks on the team. And so when we think about that, those are things to start to account for. Now, as I say, intentional, I will say this about this idea of high workloads. I used to put on my calendar on a Friday afternoon, I would block some stuff time for myself. And I would use that time to think about how do I need to intentionally recognize some folks. It doesn't always have to be spontaneous. And there would be some weeks that maybe I'd be like, I don't really necessarily have anything within my department, but I would do organizational wide since I was the HR leader. But I would block some time. And I always keep a drawer full of note cards. Always. I always have this drawer full of note cards. So at any time I could be like, let me walk back to my office. Let me put together a note. So when you have a high workload as a leader, there's a lot of pressure on you. And so you think, oh man, I wanted to send that thank you. 3 months goes by and you're like, dang, I didn't send that thank you. Two things. One, I would say, one, keep those note cards handy, put some time on your calendar. But also, you know what? There's going to be another opportunity that comes up pretty quickly. Or I even know people have said, hey, I meant to do this 2 months ago, that it was important enough. I want to circle back on it. I appreciate that because we're all human and we know how busy we all are. So it's never too late to say thank you to someone. So again, recognition does work well when people understand why they're being recognized. And what I mean by that is too often we do the what I will call the umbrella thank you. Thank you. People want to know for what, right? People want to know why they're being recognized. So instead of saying, great job today, we actually had someone who gave us an example that said, I want to thank you for the great or recognize you for the great job you did in the meeting today. So maybe instead of saying, great job today, you might hear, thank you for how calmly you handled that difficult situation today. That really reflects our value of compassion. See the difference that you hear in that from just a great job today to you were demonstrating our value of compassion. And as a leader, when you can tie it back to the mission, to the vision, to the values of the organization, two things happen. One, I clearly see how my work is having impact. But two, it also sends a message to me, and if it's done publicly, if it's the right thing to do publicly, it sends a message to everyone else. These are the behaviors we want to see repeated or continued. So, a way to do that is to be very specific in helping employees understand why they're getting the recognition that they're getting. So you don't have a big budget. I'd love to hear too in the chat for everybody else too, some things that you might be thinking about is what are some innovative ways that you are recognizing each other without a big budget? You know, some ideas, peer nomination boards. Do you have a board somewhere where people can tag each other, with information, virtually or physically have that board, right? Because if we have remote employees, it'd be great if we had a virtual board that people could do. Do you have gratitude walls where people can write those thank you messages up there? What are digital shout outs that you can do? Um, how are you telling the story of your organization? So, do you have those mission moment storytelling? Do you take a moment at some of your bigger meetings to say, hey, I want to call out this employee who did this, and you can tell the story of how they lived out the mission in that moment? Are you getting stories from clients that then you turn around and share out with folks? One of the things we do at Purple Ink, we have a newsletter every week called the Inkster. And as the owner of Purple Ink gets emails, sometimes we don't even see them, but then they appear, we get them, and they also appear in the newsletter. So then we can congratulate each other. And so it comes out and it's like, hey, this is something a client had to say. So great way to get the recognition at staff meetings. So let me see what y'all said in the chat. So I love this. A rotating goat trophy. Okay, I gotta know, is it literally look like a goat or is it just the greatest of all times? That'd be great if it really was a goat. That'd be a lot of fun. But love that. Have a rotating goat trophy. That's fun. Sent cards to celebrate people personally, signed by the management. Always love that. Thankful for you boards, okay, where people can shout out each other. Love that. A top banana trophy. Y'all, these are so much fun. I'm loving this. Oh, and it literally is a goat. That's fantastic. Like you can go to the Dollar Tree probably or some store and get a stuffed animal goat, stick that thing on a piece of wood, and there you have it, right? So again, you don't have to have a lot of money to do that. Catch them doing good cards to give out. Love these ideas. y'all are putting these together. So love all these ideas that you can do. We have a DreamWork teamwork corner where we put little notes to each other in that and read those every week at staff meetings. Awesome. I love that. Let's see, what else do we have? I'm still stuck on that goat thing, I gotta tell you, and this banana thing. Oh, you filled my bucket cards. That's awesome that we filled out every time someone did something that fills your bucket. That's outstanding. The other day I was at an event and it's a group of women and we get together every quarter. We spend time together. It's for networking, but and business development and things. And one of the things they had us do in February is when we met last. So we kind of did this Galentine's thing and we all wrote notes about something that we appreciated about what each person brought to the organization. And then we posted those up, and then people got assigned a color for the post-it note. So I knew the red ones were mine and the pink one was somebody else in lavender. And then we read through them, and then everybody got to take their post-it note home. And then they were able to put it wherever. I put mine on my extra monitor, so I have those to look at. So love all these great ideas that you all are coming up with. So all the ways that you can do this. Some other examples, if you have a Slack channel, you can use Slack as a way to recognize each other. And then again, what you're doing and what I see you all doing is you're creating that culture of recognition. So it's not only the leader's responsibility to be recognizing folks. It's all of us involved. So that's so important. And you all are creating those cultures already. And so as you think about this peer recognition, those are ideal. Employees are going to notice details that you might even miss as a leader or as the HR director or manager. So employees see what each other is doing. They are going to catch that more than you, especially if they're remote, if they're out in the field. It really does build team connection. You really start to relate more with your peers when you have that recognition and ability to recognize one another. And it does create that supportive culture. And one other thing it does, it starts to identify and magnify the behaviors that you want the organization to continue. So some of you've talked about those ideas, like the goat trophy that travels, or having a token. I saw one organization, they had a token that had one of their values on it, and then you could pass it around. So you got it. And the goal was not to hold on to it. The goal was to give it to somebody else. So I get a token for having this behavior, for doing something, recognition. I keep it in my pocket, whatever, wherever I keep it. And then when I see somebody else doing something that I appreciate or I want to recognize, then I pass the coin on to them. And there wasn't just one, there were a couple coins drifting around, but you could give that coin out to folks. I worked for an organization that had a lot of very young folks, and I mean young as in age, not as in work experience. So we had a whole lot of weddings going on. And so somebody created this kind of scary but funny doll that was all dressed up like a bride. And when somebody announced that they were getting engaged or somebody found out, they put it on top of their cubby, and then it would sit there for a period of time, either until that person got married or until somebody else got engaged, and it would travel around. But then that told all of us, hey, guess what? It's public knowledge. And of course, the employee had to say it was okay. But we would all then know, oh, Mackenzie got engaged. So people could walk by and be like, yay for you. So fun things like that too can make all the difference. So again, making sure that you know how people like to be appreciated and recognized. So maybe reading some nominations aloud at your staff meeting, knowing you might have that person who's like, just slip the note to me, I'll read them later. So knowing your people, it doesn't have to be a one size fits everybody in that case. So when you think about this, how do you reinforce your mission? So, how do you connect your appreciation to purpose? Again, I'd love to hear from you all because I think you all have so much knowledge to share with one another. Is there something specific you do that recognizes your employees, but it really reinforces or aligns with your mission? So something like that idea of having a testimonial from a client or from a family or an organization. Anything come to mind for you all? Be sure to drop that in the chat so we can capture that. So, um, celebrating those program milestones. I mean, if you have a program and it's knocked it out of the park and you've got, you've increased 10% participation, you've done this, that. We have a lot of that data sitting in HR as well as some other departments. So how are you sharing that with folks too to make sure that people see that connection with the work that they're doing? Chat got a little quiet, so I'm not sure if anybody's had some thoughts about that, but if you do, please feel free to add those to the chat. Oh, Joy did. Newsletter. Yeah, put those things in your newsletter if you have one and share that with folks so they have that. Thank you. Appreciate that. So as we talked earlier about benefits, I want to talk a little bit about other ways we can benefit and provide recognition to folks. And some of that can be small benefits that feel really big. Flexible scheduling whenever possible. And I'll say that right now, um, with gas prices the way they are at over $4 a gallon, if you can give people some flexible scheduling, if it's at all possible to maybe have somebody be able to work from home, that might be a way, gets them to save some money, gives them some flexibility. We can't always do that, but it's something to think about for us. Again, professional development opportunities. How are you investing in folks? Whether that's a chance to be on a webinar, to go to a conference, what that looks like for folks. Having some additional wellness days. So maybe having an additional mental health day for folks, especially at the end of maybe a really critical time or the end of the school year or the end of summer camps or one of those key times when people are like, whew, we just need a decompression day. So focus days without meetings. I don't know if any of you have that and you want to share. I worked for a not-for-profit and we did not have internal meetings the first 2 hours of Monday mornings so that everybody could get focused, get back into the groove, figure out their weekly schedule. And so that didn't mean they didn't have external meetings, but we didn't internal meeting. We didn't get that 6 people in a conference room for those first 2 hours on a Monday morning unless it was something critical like when COVID happened. We obviously suspended that rule because every Monday morning was a where are we with COVID discussion. So another thing, celebrate those personal milestones, the birthdays, the anniversaries, the engagements, the the babies or the new puppy adoption, whatever that looks like for folks. Lots of ways that you can recognize the whole person, right? Because we're not just our jobs and we're not only the work that we do. Our work is important, but it's not all of who we are. So also recognizing those other aspects of our employees' lives. Yeah, recognizing that whole person. I love it. Katie said our management celebrates birthdays at the end of each month. Oh, we have a biweekly coffee truck that comes every couple of months. Love that. I'm gonna have to come visit you when you have that coffee truck. I love that. Um, oh, somebody said in a past position, the staff received their birthdays as a day off and you got paid for it. So nice. All these different ways you can do this. And this idea too of fundraising event volunteers because of you, Joe, Susie, you helped us raise this much money, right? And that keeps them coming back too for more, right? Love that. Can take your birthday off and you can take any day off in the month of your birthday. So if the birthday happens to be a day, it's not going to work. you don't lose it. So all these are great. I love everything you're sharing. These are all great ways for folks to feel recognized and appreciated. And I'm guessing some of this you all have put in place because that's also how you want to be recognized and appreciated by folks. So I want to think about too, very often it is the folks on the front line of the organization that often go unseen and unrecognized. So, when I think about this, I think about healthcare, how many times we are always like, the doctors get recognized and the nurses get recognized. And then, well, what about the people at the registration desk? Or what about the folks who transport the patients? Or, the social workers who come or the interpreters. So, thinking about those people who are out there on the front line that don't automatically come to mind when you think about those that are providing service, and really making sure that those folks are recognized. And that includes, again, we talked about the people who are working different shifts in your organization, or they're managing the paperwork, right? Think about that too. Sometimes in organizations, from my not-for-profit experience, the people out there doing the case management, who were doing the grants, who were doing the fundraising, they were all out there. But then you had that IT department. And if the internet didn't work, well, we all know what happens then, right? And so how do we make sure those people who are in the back office, so to speak, as we used to say, get recognition too, as well. And so how do we do that? And also, if we have volunteers, what do we do to support and acknowledge our volunteers in the organization? Um, and Katie said too, we planned different weeks to have a spirit week and dress in fun attire. I love that. The HRME is kind of like, do you have to put all those parameters in place? Like that includes this, not that. I love the concept and a lot of fun for folks. I know an organization I'm with here today, they do like fun hat days, or they make sure that they acknowledge NCAA was a lot of fun. Everybody wore their favorite, team uniform, t-shirt, whatever, and they celebrated. And yeah, figuring out, yes, it has to be appropriate attire. So yeah, so I love this. Emily said we replace one of our weekly meetings once a month with an hour of staff self-care. That's awesome. That's awesome. And everything that could have gotten done probably gets sent in an email. And that might have been the way to have the meeting to begin with, right? That happens a lot. And you think about these little things you can do too, that do cost a little bit of money, but are still pretty cost effective, like for these self-care days. So you have a room. We had at the not-for-profit I was with, we had a room that was a quiet room, and people had um, like yoga mats in there they could sit down on. And we had like a fountain going. And again, it was stuff I think we picked up at the Dollar Tree or Five Below, like a little fountain making noise, and people could go in there. And then once a quarter, we brought in a massage therapist for people who might want to do a quick chair massage. So all these different ways that you can do some appreciation on a little bit bigger budget, maybe. And so some things that you want to make sure you're avoiding, and it sounds like you all are hitting it and nailing it. So some things to think about. Don't make it a once a year event. Um, Make sure it's not that generic praise where you're just like, hey, thanks. Make sure it's not the same people over and over again that are getting that recognition. And one of the things to be careful of is we don't tie it to productivity. So it's not always about productivity and how much work got done, but the impact of that work is always important. And make sure that too, if it's a team that works together and they've done something as a team, make sure you also recognize them. So avoid selecting one person when it was an entire team that did that worked together. And Katie was saying they have a salt room experience for staff to get a half an hour of some self-care on the clock. So a salt room, that's pretty intense too. So love all these ideas that you all keep bringing them. They can keep coming. So we know that the recognition works best when it becomes part of the everyday culture. It's not a one-time event. It's not a one person is in charge of recognition. It's not only the spirit committee or whatever you call that recognition committee that gets things done. It's actually, we're on this together. We all have an impact together. And it has to be modeled by the leader in the organization. You have to model this as the HR leaders, as the executive directors, and as managers and directors. It all has to be modeled by you in order for others to do the recognition. There's nothing more frustrating than an organization where employees are recognizing each other, but leadership is never stepping in to recognize. That can be very frustrating for folks. And so it's really essential that you model that behavior. And so that will lead to more people being able to recognize one another. And here's something else not to forget. You as a collective can also recognize one another, because leadership is often a very hard place to be. And if anybody can feel that, how many of us as leaders feel like, okay, I'm out there giving recognition. People are out there giving recognition to each other. Who often is forgotten other than maybe the front line or the back office folks? Leaders, right? How many of you are like, yeah, I'd love a Milky Way on my desk, or I'd love, and I'm not saying that as a terror, but it's the reality, right? We don't always think to recognize our leaders. We don't think to recognize up. We think about recognizing down and across the organization. So think about recognizing up within your organization, but also y'all know each other really well. You know each other's struggles. So how can you send a quick note in the mail? How many of us still love getting mail? I do. So yeah, I saw Casey's like, yep, I'm in. So, maybe you send a note in the mail to another executive director and say, hey, I just appreciate the work that you and your organization is doing. Again, how do we recognize up and outside of our organization as well for all of you who are doing the really hard work in our community? And you might also want to give a little love to the IYI folks. Just saying. Because they put a lot into having this happen for you all. So when you think about that, here are some quick wins that you could implement tomorrow. You might even be able to implement them maybe today, I don't know. But begin meetings with some team appreciation. Great way to ask folks, to share. So, or you can do appreciation. Think about that digital recognition channel. What does that possibly look like for you? Once a month, share a mission impact story that you have for folks that you want to share with the whole organization, and encourage those peer recognition notes that you can give to each other that fill your bucket, somebody described. So great way to do that. There's just some things that you can implement fairly quickly with folks. And it could be that you're just going to have people go around and say, like, let's talk about something that, you want to show appreciation for one another. Make that a habit in your organization. And so just something for you to reflect on. Think about the last time you felt genuinely appreciated at work, not over the course of your career, but in this job. Think about what made that recognition meaningful to you, and how can you, as a leader or as a member of the team, the organization, create more moments like that for the rest of your team. So something for you to think about as we leave this webinar today. So I want you to take one moment, and I'd love you to put in the chat that you want to recognize someone who makes your work easier. Now, you don't have to put their name in there because I know like we're HR folks, right? So we're like, I'm not putting names in, but maybe somebody in your organization that you want to recognize who makes your work a little easier. So I love that. Lisa's already jumped in. My supervisor. So my challenge to you, Lisa, is get a note card or send an email or something, send a message in Slack, whatever works for you all. So thinking about who you might be able to recognize. Hooray for my program director who is in this training. Yeah. My secretary, she's a rock star. I love this. See, y'all have those people that came top of mind. So I'm going to challenge you to reach out to those folks today and say, you know what, I was just thinking, I want to tell you that you're a rock star. So some key takeaways, a reminder, recognition supports retention and well-being of our staff. It doesn't require a lot of money. It really strengthens your team culture and it increases the impact that you have in your organization. And consistency matters way more than complexity. Keep it simple and keep it consistent for folks. And I'll open it to Q&A, but I want to jump to this for people who need this. I'm going to leave this one up on the screen. This has been approved for one SHRM continuing education credit, and there's your code if you need it, and it's available to you. And Katie Howell, I see that you said you had your time zone. Great news, we've recorded it, so you can watch it anytime. Thumbs up for that. So any questions?
Michelle, too, I'm checking our Q&A and I do not see any questions at this time in our Q&A. So you can drop those in the question and answer feature if you have them, or in the chat. We just have a couple more minutes. There's a couple more slides that we want to go over. Let's see. But drop those questions if you have them. I'll kind of go through what I would say. Enjoy my time. Great presentation. I'm not seeing any other questions. Yes, this presentation will be recorded. Oh, we have a question. What were the reflection points? Maybe Michelle, if you could just go back to the reflection questions.
Yep. One more. We're getting there.
Yeah,
okay,
one
more. We're close. We're close. Okay, now, oh, there we go. I was like, the computer is not reacting. So when's the last time you felt genuinely appreciated in your current role? And why was that meaningful? And then how could your organization create more moments like that for all of you?
Yeah, if you're a leader of your organization, I'm thinking of a great like visualization activity with your executive team or your management team. And then yeah, this is something that I'm thinking about how we can implement here with our IYI and our Youth Worker Wellbeing Squad. So
Love it. Love it.
this is great. So I do want to make sure, for those that are still on, make sure that we do get through just a couple more slides. So the SHRM credits were there if you wanted to sign up for Purple Ink's monthly newsletter. Information is here. And I keep going. Michelle's contact information. Thank you so much, Michelle, for this wonderful presentation. And, you know, before we get off today, we want to ensure that you are connected to additional services through the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project. Our hope is, and our goal is that you've heard this information before, and maybe you haven't, and we have new people on the presentation. And so our goal is to really increase the well-being of Indiana's youth workers. And we do this by providing direct supports to youth workers and organizations that employ them. And so this includes access to no-cost telemedicine and virtual mental health services for eligible organizations, grant opportunities for youth serving organizations. So when Michelle talks about what would be low to no cost activities, grant funding could also be used to support some of those things that did cost more money. And then also this webinar series. So if your organization is not already enrolled in telemedicine and virtual mental health services through First Step Health, this is a great opportunity to offer to all your full-time, part-time employees, all employees of your organization and their household members, again, at no cost. And it really is a simple two-step process to be able to sign up for those services. We hope you enjoyed today's session, and we want to see more of you. So we are heading to Orange County, Putnam County, and Lake County to share more information about enrollment in telemedicine and virtual mental health services. So if you are in one of those communities and not signed up, come see us. If you are signed up, come and bring a colleague to learn more and to share with your colleague about the services. And also in May and June, we have additional benefits webinars scheduled, along with 2 more webinars in our board engagement series. And so all of our Youth Worker Wellbeing Project upcoming events, and again, all of Indiana Youth Institute events can be found on our events website. As I mentioned before, we want your feedback. We thank you so much for being here with us today. Your feedback drives our work. Feedback is a gift. So please take a few minutes to let us know what you thought about today's presentation. Upon completion, you'll be redirected to your certificate of completion. So you can scan the QR code. You don't have to do the survey today. This will also be sent to you in an email. So again, you don't have to complete it just this second. This will be sent to you in an email, and you will be redirected to a certificate of completion. We really appreciate you being here, your impact, and your choice to learn alongside the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project today. Couple more. If you're not already connected with your regional outreach managers, they are a great way to open doors to opportunities, foster collaborations, and connect to resources in your community. So please connect with your outreach manager. And on behalf of the team here at Indiana Youth Institute and the Youth Worker Wellbeing Project, we thank you for showing up today and every day for Indiana youth. You're not alone. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for showing up for Indiana's youth. Reach out to us at any time if you have any questions. You are here for Indiana's youth, and we are here for you. Have a great day.
I am so sorry. Could you all see my calendar pop up? Casey, can you hear me?
I cannot, nope.
You can't hear me?